We can donate you to Zimbabwe. Tebza? Oh, Kulmizula, no. You started on the right track with that response. You started on the right track. So sorry.
It's okay.
We can start? Yes. Thank you so much. I'm going to try and be professional because Nicky's on LinkedIn.
What does that mean, though?
No, we get people from Instagram and TikTok. We're like, hey, Tada! And the people from LinkedIn, we must change our... Good afternoon, Nicky. How are you?
I'm good.
I have to apologize. I know we've been meaning to meet for a year or longer.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I get busy, but I know I'm not that busy. The apology is because of the lack of slots. Number one, at Tribal Media House, because it's a fully fledged production company, they have a lot of work. So I have limited time to film with them. And then I use another platform called Amped, and there I'm kind of at their mercy for slots. So it kind of piles up. I think I've currently got a backlog of like 60 guests that I'm probably never going to get through. But we try. And I know politics as well this year also disrupted because there was a priority on political content. You may be the second, I don't even know if it's called an influencer, but the second person I've had on my platforms that's like a big deal on LinkedIn. So people are normally a big deal on other platforms.
Yeah.
Outside of that, are you well? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm honored to have you. Over 118,000 followers.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, which is like such a serious profile.
Yeah, it is.
What do you do? What are you known for? Anything just about your background that you think is important for people to know before we delve into some of the mechanics of the chat today?
Well, on LinkedIn, I guess everywhere, I'm known for technology, how emerging technologies are impacting the world of work in general. A field that I would say I found myself in it by accident. I called myself an accidental woman in tech.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really know that this would be the path for me. So it sort of happened by default. But I love it. And so my transition to LinkedIn was something I was looking for, a platform where I could be more nerdy and so to say. I love reading. I love writing. And I felt at the time like Facebook was really not doing it for me. It was too social. Instagram, I felt like you always have to have these 5-star things happening around you, your background, your restaurant, your cat, your dog, everything has to be on point. Yeah. I felt like that was not for me. So LinkedIn became the platform for me to share my ideas around the world of technology and how emerging technologies are impacting the world of work. So that became my audience because apparently it was well received because I've grown pretty much on the platform.
Where's a home for you? You speak very beautifully. Where's home for you? Where did you grow up? What did you want to do before you stumbled into women in tech? I think it's become a tech phrase now. Getting into the digital tech space for emerging economies. Where's home? Where did you grow up? What did you want to be?
I grew up in Cameroon. And
you speak French?
Yes, I was about to say, every time I say that, the next question is, do you speak French? And then for those who speak French, they go like, vous parlez français? I'm like, I wish I could. So it's crazy because in Cameroon, majority of the country speaks French. But then the country was colonized by the French and the British. So we the minority of the English-speaking side, were under the British colony. Then the rest of the country was under the French colony. So it ended up dividing the country into two, where you will find people in Cameroon like myself who can speak any French to even save their lives. Yeah. And then on the other hand, you will find people in Cameroon who cannot say even the word in English. And so, it is what it is. I was home very recently, a few months ago, and I felt like a foreigner in my own country because the language barrier is huge.
Yeah.
When you don't speak French back home, it's difficult to really integrate and even do business. So,
You're raising two interesting points. Number one, the different cultures of different social media platforms.
Right.
Because someone will be like, no, you can't post that there. I mean, it's LinkedIn. But the same person will post a trash piece on Twitter. I wonder if you know what informs that or if it's organic. And then the second thing is the interesting aspect of getting Black Africans almost discriminating against each other because of colonial languages. And you're like, these aren't even our languages, but I look down on you because you speak French, or you look down on me because I speak English. And these are not even languages that we chose. So the first one, do you have any idea what causes this cultural vibe of a social media platform or a digital platform? And number two, just any thoughts on the importance maybe of language and colonial languages on the African continent?
Let me start with the language part. Because I experienced this so recently. I was back home. One of the things when you were apologizing earlier about, for us not being able to do the podcast on time, I'm okay because I was traveling. I wasn't even in the country. I just came back in July. So it's like a month since I have been back.
Thank you for excusing me. I feel less guilty.
No, it's fine. I was away for 4 months. I was traveling. I went home and then I went to different other countries. So I did about 7 countries in 4 months. Then I came back to SA. So back to the language thing, I noticed this so much when I went back home this time around. I think when I was still back home, because I've been in South Africa for 17 years now.
Okay.
And so before coming here, I don't think I felt it that much because I was pretty much locked down in the English-speaking side. Now, when I went back home and I realized the language barrier and the discrimination, where you are literally being discriminated by the French because you cannot speak the French. And so many times I had to convince people that I'm actually Cameroonian. Like I actually had to show my ID or my passport. Like, hey, I'm not a foreigner. I'm not from outside. I'm from here, which is quite frustrating. And you get discriminated in government offices when you can't speak French because majority, again, of the government is French. We are only the English speaking in Cameroon is only 20%. So it's very, very difficult to integrate yourself as an English person. For the French people, they don't need to worry because, again, the English people are not in power. We don't do most things that are not in English. And it's just very difficult for the English person to integrate, but then the French people have the advantage. I remember being in the capital in my country, going to the supermarket, and I actually struggled to buy things because things are named in French. But we are called the bilingual nation, right? And then I look back in some of the countries that I've been to Dubai, I was in Thailand. I'm looking at how the labels on their supermarket, it is English, it is Thai, it is English in countries like Dubai or the UAE, it is English and then it's Arabic, right? So it is constantly 222. But in my country, it is purely French.
Even though they call themselves a bilingual country, they don't accommodate.
Exactly.
Your thoughts on... I don't want to go down the language rabbit hole.
I know, right? I think I didn't respond to the second one, which was
the first one about the culture. I'm just thinking of this language one because it's worth...
Yes.
No, sorry, please answer the first one. I want to see if I want to take it further or just leave it.
All right, cool. In regards to the platform, when my book, of course, which threw me in the technology space, my book titled Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. When the book was released, I was very much eager to find a platform that sort of message resonated with, so to say. I was on Facebook at the time, but I just felt like people on Facebook, I know there are people winning it, on Facebook. But in my case, I just felt like people were just like, oh, nice. And that was it. Like, I was like, how am I ever going to convert this crowd into something more meaningful? It just did not work out for me. It was too social. It's almost like they're just watching what you're doing and engaging and commenting, but it doesn't really translate into something more meaningful or say converting them into business or any sort of that. So it did not work for me. And I was really eager to find a platform. Then, like I mentioned earlier, I thought of Instagram. I have social anxiety. So the whole idea of constantly having to photograph myself and I was like, I cannot do this. And then I thought of Twitter. Well, it is called X now. As you can tell, I talk a lot. So I felt like when I have my ideas to share, there's this limit of characters. And secondly, I felt like Twitter is also very political. And you have to be what's the word? You have to be controversial on Twitter to really get attention. I didn't think I have that. So I'm on Twitter, but I'm not that active. So LinkedIn was a place for me. And this is what happened when I went on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was so intimidating for me that like it was almost like peeping through and running. Like, I cannot do this. The titles, CEO, founder, the managers, the senior exec, all of these titles, I was like, I don't belong here. This is not a platform for me. So I went and peeped a few times and run and picked a few times and run. That was in 2019. But eventually I didn't even know how to title myself on the platform. My book had just come out. That was apparently the only title I had to my name. And I was still very uncomfortable to even call myself an author, right? So I would literally go and write a writer. Even to this day, I still introduce myself as a writer because it's like, am I really an author? Like, did I really publish a book? But nonetheless, I went on the platform. I think initially was just a writer, stroke something. I don't remember what it was. And I started publishing content around the impact of technology in the world of work, digital transformation, the future of work, skills of the future. So I just started putting all of that. Initially, there was no traction at all. It was almost like I'm throwing things and there people don't exist here. But eventually it picked up and it just grew from I think I had like 800 followers at the beginning of, let's say the end of 2019. Yeah, then it grew from there to over 118,000, like you said earlier. Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you do and for the impact. When did speak about LinkedIn? When did you move to South Africa and why?
I moved to South Africa in 2007. It was to actually get married.
Hey. You're married to a South African man?
Not really.
Oh, you're married to...
I'm divorced now, by the way. So, yes. But I moved because of marriage. My ex was here. So, I moved for studies and marriage. There were two things, which eventually the marriage did not work out. And
sorry about
I
that.
Stayed, I got two kids from my ex.
Where's your ex-husband from?
Cameroon as well.
Okay. And he was based here?
He was based here. He's still based here, yeah.
Did you guys met in Cameroon?
Yes.
And then you moved for love. Congrats on the kids, at least.
Yes, I have two
some
beautiful
evidence
kids.
of marriage and love.
Life happens, life happens.
Okay. And you've enjoyed being here. Do you feel like this is your home? This is where you should be?
I don't know if you want us to go there.
Please.
I love it here.
Please feel free. It's a safe space.
I feel this is more of home to me than my country. I mean, that is one way of how I feel because I really got matured here. I came here when I was 23, I think. So I really understood life here. I evolved in this country. My mind opened in this country. Everything I've learned, I've built a career in this country. My brand is known in South Africa more than anywhere else. So in a way, that this is really like home for me. I've worked with some of the big brands in South Africa, like this is where I'm known, right? So in a way, this is, like I mentioned earlier, me being home, I felt more of a foreigner because, especially of the language barrier. And also because, I've lived outside for so long. So every time I go home, I struggle to integrate a bit. But on the other hand, there is the aspect of, that you're not fully accepted, by the people where you are based. There's always a reminder that you are a foreigner, like in subtle ways and in also very in your face. And all of that, it makes you feel a type of a way. Actually, early this year, I came to a conclusion where I was like, I think I need to leave.
It got that bad?
It's hard to put it into words. It's a feeling where you know that no matter what you do or what you say or who you are, you will never really fully be accepted, maybe in a country like South Africa. And in many cases, it doesn't matter. I know that there is a fight for illegal immigration, right? But as someone who is legal and in the country, in many cases, it doesn't matter whether you are documented or not. You're given the same treatment. You're treated with disdain as soon as they picked up that you're a foreigner. No one has ever really stopped me and asked, where are your papers before they treat me in a type of way. They just need to know she is not South African, and then I get certain looks, right? I can give an example. When I was still in the corporate world, when I was working, before I got retrenched. I don't know if you know that story, but I got retrenched back in 2017, somewhere around there. But there was the lady where I used to work. There was a lady who used to come and clean. And every time my boss was Indian. So every time she comes in, she will speak to my boss in English, and then she will speak to me in the language. I don't know which of the language, could be Zulu, I think.
One of the South African languages, yeah.
And then every time I would tell her, I don't understand what she's saying, she'd get really, really offended and mad and ask me, you're an African, you're Asian, you should be speaking. I'm like, but I'm not from here. Like, well. And so it's something that repeatedly happened. She refused to communicate in a way that I could understood what she was saying, but she would gladly speak to my boss, who was Indian
in English.
In English, yeah. So those are some of the things we see out there. And then I remember when I was in hospital, when I was having my son and I went to the hospital, the nurse who attended to me was very rude. I was in deep pain in labor. And she kept asking me, what are you doing here in our country? We know Nigerians are selling drugs here. So, but what is it that you Cameroonians are doing here? I got so scared. She was the only person in the room with me and so rude. I was like, I don't know what this lady's going to do to me in here. So those are some of the things you experience as a foreigner. It didn't matter whether I was documented or not. She was just rude because I was not South African. And she's asking me, what are my own things as Cameroonians that we do here? They know that Nigerians are selling drugs. Can I tell her what we do?
Have you traveled throughout the African continent?
Yes, I've been to Botswana. I've been to Nairobi.
Kenya.
Yeah. I have been to Rwanda. Yes, I've gone to a few African countries, which I love it.
Have you felt any type of discrimination there? There's a reason why I'm asking. There's a reason I'm asking, sorry.
I understand. No, I haven't. It could be because I haven't stayed that long, but I think I was in Kenya for pretty much a while. Sure. And then Rwanda, I've been back and forth twice. Yeah. But to be honest, no, it's a different vibe.
Okay.
And recently, when I was in Thailand, I was in Singapore. I came back, I was sharing this with someone, right? I was saying, in Thailand, there's a different feeling when you are the minority because each time I saw a Black person, I'm literally like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, so excited about seeing a Black person. Yeah. And sometimes the Thai people themselves, they're so friendly and they walk up to me. They know, of course, I'm Black, I'm different, I'm clearly not from their country. And they will ask me, where are you from? And for the first time, I noticed how calm I answered that question. I noticed how excited I was in answering that question. But here in South Africa, when I'm asked, where are you from? Yeah. Literally, my heart rate goes up. I start feeling my palms sweating. I am like, it is an innocent question, but because the xenophobia, so to say, it's so always in your face, I am scared. I don't know how this person is going to react when I tell them I am not South African. Yeah. It's a fear that I've never really said it and someone reacted funny, but it's a fear I live with every day. So many times I will get into an Uber and I'm so scared to start a conversation because, of course, the next question will be, where are you from? Yeah. And I'll be forced to answer, right? So, those are some of the things that, as much as I love the country, those are some of my realities. I don't know if any other foreigners feel like that, but those are my realities that I feel as an immigrant living in South Africa, especially with the question of where do you come from. I realized how excited I was answering these questions in Asian countries, but so afraid to answer them in South Africa, where I am from.
I haven't traveled Africa extensively, I have to be honest. The reason I was asking is because I wanted to know if discrimination around the continent is the same. I know there are issues between Nigerians and Ghanaians, as an example. You're teaching us now about issues within Cameroon of people that speak French versus English. I know a lot of countries have issues with Nigerians on the continent and even around the world for various reasons. Some of them are valid. Some of them are unfortunately not valid. I wanted to ask you, and this is unfair, but maybe you have an opinion on why you think specifically Black South Africans have, not necessarily why they have issues with the African brothers and sisters, but what do you think the core problem might be so that if we resolve it, we don't stress anymore? Do you think it's just colonization, just divide and conquer? Do you think it's something else? Because some will obviously argue, well, Nigerians bring drugs. I'm like, cool. I'm not from Nigeria, number one, even though that's also unfair. But I'm not from Nigeria. So what's your issue with me? You don't know Cameroon. You don't know where it is. You don't know what happens there.
Right.
What exactly is your problem?
Speaking of not being from Nigeria, most of the time we are just all locked under Nigeria, right? They don't even care whether you're Ghanaian, Cameroon. We are all referred to as Nigerian. And I said this, my kids are born here. My kids have never even been to our home country. They don't know any other country than South Africa. They've never traveled out of South Africa. But they get bullied in school all the time to go back to their country. I mean, that is how bad some of this whole thing is. Like even kids in school can pick up, especially when they cannot speak the language, that, oh, these are not South Africans, and they, throw these words at them. So I think that the question you're asking, there's so many layers to it. Part of it is colonization. Part of it is maybe an easy target. Part of it also is when a particular thing has been repeated so often. They said if you want the lie to become the truth, say it more often, right?
Correct.
So because it had been said so often, many people just believe it without critically analyzing that. Are foreigners really the problem in South Africa? So I think that's part of it. Of course, I know that crime is a thing. It's a huge thing in South Africa. One of the things that I noticed in traveling to other countries is the safety, the safety you feel. Yeah. You don't constantly have to watch over your back. Being in Dubai, like the environment is so safe that your body reacts to that. Being in Singapore, the environment is so safe that your body, you feel the muscles in your body relax to that. The day you come back, right at OR Tambo, as you land, you tense up, like it just, it reacts to that. So yes, crime is a thing. But if all foreigners were to leave South Africa, will that problem really be solved? So those are some of the questions. So I think that and repeating that foreigners are a problem. Many people have bought into that narrative without really questioning it. Yeah. I'm not saying all foreigners in South Africa are not the problem. Of course, there are criminals that are foreigners, and there are criminals that are locals. So, but I think that because this thing, especially, I don't know if I want to go there, because it's become also a political topic, it's going to become difficult for people to just accept that every country has foreigners, so to say. When, again, I'm going to go back to the UAE. Being in the UAE, you barely see locals. Especially in Dubai, it's made of, you know that these are not people from the UAE. Like you just walk out, go down Dubai downtown, you see it. Wherever you can see that these are not locals. You barely see them. So the country is so open and so welcoming that as a foreigner, you feel you're welcome here. And they don't make it that thing of like, oh, you are a foreigner. Like you don't even feel that. So the difference is clear. And when you hear of the goals that the country, again, like the UAE, have to increase their population growth, part of it is to make it more easy, give more access for more people to come into the country, right? It's the same thing with Singapore, opening up more avenues for more foreigners to come into the country. But when you look at South Africa, it's almost like South Africa is anti-tourism. I don't know how to put it. I know that on one hand, there is promotion for tourism, but on one hand also there is like, we don't want foreigners, I guess maybe specifically black foreigners.
We want white American and white European tourists, not black African tourists.
Exactly. Yeah. So that type of conflict of information, it makes you wonder. Yeah. We are campaigning for tourism, but at the same time, we don't want foreigners, and we are being used under the same label as illegal immigrant. But not all of us are illegal, right? But we receive the same treatment. Suppose an illegal immigrant, we receive from the locals.
I'm sorry about your experience. I'm going to close off this topic. I'm sorry about your experience, and you didn't come here for this. But thank you for indulging me. As you were speaking, some of the things you were saying about your children and what they experienced made me think of white children who were not alive during apartheid, etc., who are also just here. Right. They've never been to Europe, and they get told, go back to your own country.
Right.
And there was something that you said specifically that really touched me. No matter what you do, You can pay all the taxes. You can create jobs. You can donate. You can be like, there are Black South African children that I have taken to school or whatever. I will never be welcome here. And you guys would rather embrace a criminal who does nothing but destroy your country as long as they have a local ID. And that's not how nations are built. And to be fully honest, a big chunk, if not almost all South Africans, depending on how far back you go in history, were not originally on this piece of land. And now, almost like white Americans who want to chase away immigrants. And you're like, you guys are not even from here. Some of you are Irish, some of you are British, some are Spanish, but you have the audacity to want to tell people that they're not from here. So I do hope some of this work, and you're very right that politicians are going to carry on being convenient. I hope some people are going to try and put in the work and make sure that in putting the work, we're not defending criminality, but we're highlighting the positive of people that are here, that have been here, that have added so much value, to try and shift the mindset. It makes me sad, and I'm sorry. And I'm not going to tell you, please don't leave, because I'm not the person that's been responsible for making you feel uncomfortable. Right. But if ever you feel a need, if ever you feel unsafe, I mean, there are ordinary Black South Africans that are leaving South Africa because of crime, because of when you're in Dubai, 2:00 in the morning, children are riding on scooters. You know, in places like South Korea, people leave their cars open with the keys inside. It's mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
So we need to fix this.
It's the only country that I've been able to take a walk at late in the night if I couldn't sleep. It's the same in Dubai. It's the same in Singapore.
Yeah.
I remember like video calling a friend at 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, I'm taking a walk. It's like, what? At the night by yourself? I'm like, yeah. I couldn't sleep. So I just take a walk. And you see the city is alive. Like literally people don't even sleep, right? So it is that safe. The only country I've been in Africa with that type of vibe is Rwanda.
Rwanda.
Yes.
I've heard good things about Rwanda.
Yes, you can take a walk at any time.
I hope I'll go visit soon. Kigali.
Yes.
What did you want to be before writing your book?
Ooh. There were so many as a kid. Thinking about it now makes me laugh. As a kid growing up, I wanted to be a reverend sister. I don't know. If you are Christian, you go to Catholic church.
Okay.
You know the sisters that wear those things?
Like a nun?
Sort of. I think that's how it's called. That was my aspiration as a kid. And looking back, I realized where that came from, because in the village I grew up with, most of the people that were sort of
respected and revered.
Yes, we're either reverend fathers or reverend sisters.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I want to be that when I grow up. Yes. But then when you move out of the village, from that environment, your dreams, of course, they change, right? So I moved to the city and I started thinking of something else. I was like, going to school, I actually love working with people. So the idea was maybe marketing or something in finance. But then it never really worked. Then the whole South African thing came up. I came here, I went to school for a bit, which I did not graduate. So officially, I don't have a degree. And the plan was, but at the time I was working before I got retrenched, right? But I was working as a PA, as a personal assistant. Yeah. So I hadn't really figured out at that point exactly what I wanted to be. So I know as a kid that I had these plans or these dreams or these aspirations, but it never really translated into anything tangible. I think I was still finding my way. Yeah. I was still evolving and discovering who I was. And then marriage also, I was married for almost 10 years. So it's a long time. And I just became a mom, a wife. There was really nothing much out of that. And I wasn't really like looking for anything much out of that. I just thought, this is life. And then what happened. I had to like sort of go back into myself and what else is there for me. Oh. And even me doing what I do, again, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't sit and even plan to be any of this, to be in the tech world or to speak about technology. Just when I wrote the book that now addressed topics around technology, it just threw me into that spotlight. Initially, I was like, oh my God, switch it off. I cannot do this. But I had to like realize that, okay, I guess this is now my calling. This is now my sport. So I made peace with that. I kind of embrace it, and I actually love it because I've learned so much. I'm self-taught. I tell people all the time, I am self-taught. Everything I know about technology, I learned it because I didn't go to school for this. I don't have a background in tech. Like I told you, I had a session this morning with a team, and I was explaining to them that era where the topic of technology was only for IT guys is over.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a smartphone, you are in tech, whether you like it or not. So yeah, those are some of the things I was unpacking. So I got myself into this space, and I absolutely love it. I enjoy it, especially with how fast, the world is changing when it comes to technology. So I'm constantly on my toes, learning what are the new trends, what else is happening out there.
I've had an amazing lady on this platform called Princess Mtombeni. She's an advocate for nuclear on the continent in all its different usages: medicine, electricity, energy, not weapons. I don't think she advocates for weapons, but the different usages of nuclear. She stumbled upon it by accident as well. And today she's traveled all over the world.
Right.
She speaks about it. She tells people, I'm not a nuclear scientist, etc. One of the things you speak about, I didn't get my qualification, but you're probably more educated and skilled in this space. We've heard, I think Mark Zuckerberg, if I'm not mistaken, I think Elon Musk is another one. I'm not sure about Bill Gates, have spoken about in the future. It's not going to be about what papers you have, but what problems you can solve and what skills you have to solve those problems. That's one of the things you speak about as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always give myself as an example. If I could do what I do, I've been in rooms that if anyone had told me I could ever be part of that conversation, I'd be like, no way, I could never be. I've traveled to places where if anyone had told me, I would not believe it, right? But me, learning about this, deciding to be self-taught, learning about the whole industry, made me realize, practically so that you need to bring much more than a piece of paper to the table in this age and time. You need to, if all you have is a degree, it's not going to be enough.
Yeah. What do you think the future of education and the job environment will be, considering how disruptive tech is?
It is interesting because the education system is not evolving fast enough to be on the same level with where the world is going or with how fast the world is changing. If you and I, we know when ChatGPT, the OpenAI application ChatGPT was released, many universities and many education entities banned the use of ChatGPT in their schools, and it blew my mind. I was thinking to myself, education in the right sense of it, innovation should be coming from the education system. Because we are here to train people for the future, for the world out there. But sadly, most innovations are coming from outside. And when they're trying to penetrate the education system, what do? They block it. Like, we don't want it here. We are okay with the way things are. We want to maintain the status quo, which is dangerous now. So when you look at that type of approach to innovation, that type of approach to progress as a society or as an education system, we tend to wonder, what type of future leaders are we raising or are we training? How are you going to train a kid in school that you have decided they're not going to use any of these AI tools? You are training them for the world that is using AI tool. You're training them for an economy that is powered by artificial intelligence. But you are saying, no AI in my classroom. You're not using any AI tool to do your homework. You're not using any AI tool to learn. You're not using any AI tool. But then you train these people and you throw them into the world of work and they're like, you get what I'm saying? Because how are they going to be able to integrate in the world of work that is completely powered by artificial intelligence when they are not exposed to artificial intelligence in a classroom? So those are key questions that the education system needs to start asking. Are we training these children for the world that existed 10 years ago? Or are we training these children for the world that is coming in 5 to 10 years?
I'm imagining schools that when calculators were created would be against a calculator and say, no, you can't use this. You're like, but it's meant to help us solve these problems. And I remember when I was at university, Wikipedia was greatly frowned upon to a point where we found a cheat, at least with Wikipedia. Because what Wikipedia does, it obviously puts references of links at the bottom. So you go on Wikipedia, find whatever you find, and then try and look at the links on the bottom and then reference those, because those pass. The argument I could imagine from the schooling system, I hate calling it the education system because Yeah, it's just school, and a lot of the education is kept out.
I love that.
Is if we give these kids ChatGPT, if we give them Wikipedia, if we allow them to use Meta AI and ask questions, they're never going to be able to think for themselves. They're never going to be able to research for themselves. They're going to look for shortcuts. You're coming with the problem of you guys are going to get left behind. And this is why Elon Musk and others are creating alternative schools. This is why we've got such high graduate unemployment, such high, even children with matric unemployment.
Right.
And they tell you, this is the problem though. We're worried that if we give kids a calculator, they're not going to understand long division or how these things actually work. They'll just punch numbers in. Yes, in the real world, that's done. But the assumption is that the people in the real world got that foundation.
Right.
What would your counter argument be to them?
Good that you're bringing the calculator analogy because, I mean, when you read back in history, when it came up, people stood against it. They said it's going to make people lazy, right?
Still holding on to the abacus.
Yes, they stood against it. And you mentioning that you don't like calling it the education system. Chapter 9 of my book literally speaks to that. I speak on chapter 9 of my book is that schooling is not education. Schooling can happen without education, and education can happen without school.
100%.
So the two, when you put it in the same sentence, it kind of sound like it's the same thing, but it's not. Back to the calculator analogy, people fought against that we should not introduce this. It's going to make people lazy. It's going to make people do. But no, it's a tool. So my counter argument when it comes to artificial intelligence or any of the technology is that it is a tool.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to use the tool to become more effective. A car is a tool. A bicycle is a tool. All of these new technologies, I know when we speak of technology, we only think of like maybe AI now, but a car is a technology that came at some point, you know. Electricity is technology that was developed at some point.
Even the calculator.
Exactly, it was a technology and in its own time. So these are all tools that are being given to, or humanity is producing to assist us humans to become more effective and more efficient. So the question then becomes, will you rather walk from here to Sandton or will you drive?
Yeah.
Those driving to Sandton makes you lazy. The person who walks to Sandton, is it then more effective, more hardworking, and all of that. Yeah. So we only have 24 hours in a day. Each and every one of us, we have 24 hours in a day. If there's a tool that can make you be more productive in that 24 hours, why not use it?
Yeah.
Why look at it as the enemy? Again, when you look at, if there's one thing ChatGPT, a tool like ChatGPT has taught us, clearly critical thinking has not been taken out of the equation. Because the more effective and efficient you phrase your questions, the better answers you get out of the system.
Yeah.
So if you are lazy to think, to prompt the system properly, you will get lazy answers out of it. Sure. So at the end of the day, it didn't diminish your thinking in any way. It's just that you, with your poor thinking, you haven't worked on thinking critically and asking, you know, questions in a way that gives you exactly what you're asking. That's how we're seeing some of the horrible content out there, because these people don't know how to ask or how to prompt these AI systems properly. So for me, I think that critical thinking is still very key, because if you can ask good questions, you have a powerful tool, an assistant that helps you get to where you're supposed to be faster, cheaper, and better.
There are people that own cars that are sitting collecting dust, a tool that other people are using to make money.
Yeah.
There are people that took a calculator and built businesses.
Right.
There are people that took calculators and they're sitting in a drawer. I fully love what you're saying about it. It's just a tool.
It's a tool.
And the truth of the matter is, especially on a continent like Africa, the more tools we have for problem solving, the sooner and quicker we can try and solve these problems. Because you don't have to use ancient tools just because we're developing.
Speaking Elon Musk, of ancient tools, let me just add to, you mentioned ancient tools. I was in Nairobi and I gave a talk. And a young man in the room put up the hand and said, "No, Nicky, these conversations are not for Africa." You know, I was talking about, of course, emerging technologies. And his argument was that Africa is still in the third industrial revolution, right? I was like, in a way, yeah. And then I asked him what phone he was using. I think he was using iPhone 11 at the time, or iPhone 12. It was the latest at the time. And I asked him when last did he go to the bank. He said he barely goes to the bank. How do you do your banking transactions? He said on his phone or on his computer, right? So the same person arguing with me saying that these conversations are not for Africa is the same person who will not go into a branch to do his banking transaction. Is the same person with the latest technology. But they think that when you talk about technology now in a holistic approach, then that conversation does not apply to Africa. Then why do Africans want iPhone so badly? Why do we? These are latest technologies with the latest AI on it. Why do we need those technologies? But anyway, so one of the things that I highlighted with him was that, yes, Africa is still in the third industrial revolution, like he said, in many parts of the continent. Yes, some parts don't even have electricity. Let's not even talk of having internet connection, right? This is the truth. These are the truth. But with the gift of artificial intelligence, we can solve some of these problems faster and more efficient because we do not have the problem of legacy technologies to get rid of.
Yes.
So we have a clean slate to start from. The continent has so many problems. Like Talifani Banks would always say, I'm sure you know him, he would say, Africa is blessed with problems, right? So our problems are our opportunities. And when we look at the Western world, it's almost like they've run out of things to innovate. It's almost like their systems are so perfect, they don't know what else to use these new technologies to innovate with. Hence, some of the innovation happening in the Western world has now become gender. I do not want to go into those details, but when a country or when a nation does not have many problems...
They've gotten so bored and they don't have problems that they're manufacturing ones.
So when there are no real problems to solve, we start seeing these type of problems. Now we have to be solving problems of gender. There are how many genders in the world? There are 100. This month is 50 or next month is 200 genders. So for me, I feel like they've run out of things to innovate. But Africa is blessed with problems. We have real problems on the continent. And we need to be able to use these new tools that are coming to solve these problems. For example, is in manufacturing. It's a big deal in Africa. Many of products being used on the continent are still being manufactured outside, right? And if we are to deploy technologies like, for example, 3D printing, it can completely transform the manufacturing sector on the continent, right? When you even look at construction, if you can bring in robots and all of these new technologies that are happening or that are coming up, it can build roads in shorter times than it would have taken maybe 5 years in the past or 2 years in the past. But if we bring in these new technologies, the work that would have taken 5 years can literally take a year to be completed or less.
We saw hospitals being built in China during the lockdown in crazy times.
Yes. Yes, this is happening everywhere. Even I was in Dubai, like buildings are shooting up overnight, because why they're using overnight. Literally, I'm not talking buildings, like cities. They will find this empty space and before you know, there's a new city being built. Why? Because they are using new tools that makes them do the work cheaper and faster. The same thing in Singapore. The work that is being done when they're building all of these new buildings. And something I noticed in Singapore was that, for example, if there's construction that is happening, there's the morning shift, there's the afternoon shift, there's night shift. There is never a time you pass away, there is new work happening and work is not going on. And then I remember there was this whole thing in Brie Street in town, the explosion that happened. It happened just before I left South Africa. I came back 4 months later. I was shocked.
Nothing's happened.
Nothing had happened. It is still there. I am in Singapore. One of the locals, I'm walking with her and she's showing me, I saw a light flickering. A street light flickering. She showed me, she said, Nicky, you see that light? It was close to my hotel. You see that light? I promise you by tomorrow morning it will be fixed. Either a local is going to call or the people responsible for it because they consistently check if everything is working. Yes. So the next morning it was fixed. So that is how efficient they are. I mean, the system is whether it's construction or manufacturing and all of that. Why can't Africans adopt these new technologies of doing things fast instead of waiting years and years to repair a simple road?
Makes me sad that many of us don't have a teachable spirit. So we live in Johannesburg, and Johannesburg is a melting pot of many different nations and cultures around the world. I've driven past Sandton in years past. I've driven past parts of Midrand where there are Chinese developments. where they bring in Chinese laborers and you see them working at night with lights, to say that South Africans should see that it's possible to keep working at nighttime and have a nighttime shift.
Yeah.
But we're not bringing that here. If anything, at least on the labor aspect, it's like we've come up with these laws to keep us away from productivity, that you must knock off at this time, you can't work for this long, you're like, I understand, but that's almost like telling your child, you can't do extra maths late at night.
Right.
You can't do extra homework on the weekend because the laws don't allow. And you're like, but I want to catch up with my friends. No, we don't want you to catch up. If 40% is what you're getting, you can only do 2 hours of maths per day. Otherwise, don't go anywhere beyond. And which kind of explains why we're also not catching up. We're meant to be running faster. Elon Musk has raised this concern. I think it's been raised by, I don't know if it's the CEO or the ex-CEO of, I don't know if it's OpenAI with ChatGPT. I know there were issues when Bill Gates and them bought it and Elon Musk and them got out. He was on Lex Fridman. And then you've got a movie like The Matrix.
Right.
Many others, Ex Machina as well. The fears of artificial intelligence, I don't know if it's something that you cover, because the one fear in movies is that robots become so smart, they start killing us, and then all of a sudden, we're fighting against robots. But to bring it closer to what we're coming to speak about now, the fear of Nicky's gone to Singapore, South Korea, she's gone to Japan, she's gone to Germany, she's gone to Canada, and she's found all these technologies, and she's coming back and she's solving all these problems in Africa. She's brilliant. She's the Black female African Elon Musk. But now you're killing our jobs. Now other companies that were maybe making money and creating jobs, most of them foreign, now they have to retrench workers. And so even something silly like a calculator or something like a tractor. I mean, a tractor means all the people that were plowing and their cows now have to sit back because you've got a tractor. Worse, it's self-driving. It's got its own GPS. It monitors when best to plow, etc. How do you counter the concerns of AI bringing problems, well, outside of global doom and the end of the world, but I won't have a job. I don't really trust this machine to diagnose whether I'm really sick. I don't know if my child is actually learning anything at school because all they do is prompt ChatGPT, and maybe it's not even them. They ask ChatGPT to copy someone else's work somewhere.
Right.
So how do you counter those concerns with artificial intelligence?
Well, not every concern, to start off, not every concern with AI can be countered because some of the concerns are valid, very valid. There are people that will lose their jobs. This technology is disruptive.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was in Thailand, we had the conversation around artificial intelligence, the regulation around it, the governance around it, the technology. And you could see that many different countries are still grappling on how do we regulate these things. Yeah. And few countries actually are on it, working to regulate. I recently looked at the maps, world maps for countries that are actually governments around the world that are actually putting policies in place to regulate artificial intelligence. There are few African countries on that map that are doing anything to regulate artificial intelligence, right? So that is one aspect of it. So many of the concerns are real. And many of the concerns, governments are not yet waking up to look into this thing of, okay, how do we regulate it? Now, back to the issue of jobs. Artificial intelligence is going to take away jobs. It's going to destroy jobs. That is the reality of it, sad to say, right? And I don't think that the people building these technologies meant for it to really be that way. Is that in every disruption, of course, there are consequences. Yeah. So for me, these are like the unintentional consequences of these new
collateral damage.
Yes, yeah. Technologies. But nonetheless, these are real concerns. However, focusing only on the threats blinds you from the opportunities. Because if you keep looking at, oh my God, that car is coming, it's going to hit me, and you stand there without doing anything, of course, the car is going to come hit you, right? So for many people, I think that they are asking the wrong questions, or they are focusing on something that is not empowering. For example, one of the things I say is, when you ask the question, is AI going to steal my job? The answer is yes. Beside, I think AI already has your job in a way.
Yes.
But then, how does that empower you?
Yeah.
It's not an empowering question. It's a question that makes you go to bed at night with anxiety. Ask a more empowering question. How do I leverage AI to stay relevant? For me, that's a more empowering question than just sitting and ruminating if AI is going to steal your job. Because the answer to that is yes. If anyone tells you AI is not going to steal your job, they're lying to you.
They're lying. So I wanted to mention sorry to disturb you. You were speaking about governments that are grappling with AI.
Yes.
And I remember the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as an example, has a minister of state for artificial intelligence, digital economy, and remote work applications.
Absolutely.
So those are governments that are...
They're at the forefront.
They're at the forefront and they're thinking of these things. Whereas your government, maybe, depending on where you're from, maybe doesn't even have a minister of technology.
Mine is worse. Before we even come to South Africa, mine is completely worse. I think mine, we are still very much so in the second industrial revolution. Yes. So yes, I think is the UAE. I think Japan also has a ministry dedicated to artificial intelligence. There are very few countries in the world that are really putting ministries to handle this disruption that is coming, and they're getting their people ready for it. Singapore also is very forward thinking around that. They're making policies that make sure that kids are introduced very early on into this artificial intelligence. In fact, while in Singapore, I took their metro rail and I was in the train. And these school kids, it was in the afternoon late in the afternoon when kids are coming back from school. So they're also full in the metro trail. Yeah. So these students rush in. I'm standing on the corner. So they rush in and they start having a conversation. You know how kids are talking about how school was boring today. And then one of the students said something that caught my attention. It's like, artificial intelligence was boring today. These are conversations that school kids are having in Singapore. Yeah. Immediately, because I'm in the field, it caught my attention. So I'm standing on the corner quietly, listening to what these kids are talking about. Oh, artificial intelligence is boring today. Oh, sir was asking me to do this. Oh, the teacher was asking to do that. Those are conversations that Africa, I don't even think any kid in Africa will come back from school and said AI was boring today.
I have 7 children. Let me try to calculate. Maths. ChatGPT. How many children does Penuel?
That was hilarious.
Different parents, different visions, different ideologies. And I'm going to end up with a question that has to do with school and teachers and parenting. One of the mothers of 2 of my kids, she's not big on social media. She hates social media, in fact. She's not big on the cell phone. She's intentionally kept my kids away from social media, cell phones. My son is now in the 9th year, grade 9, I think in South African... the South African equivalent. It's the first time he has a SIM card with WhatsApp. So we're only now chatting on WhatsApp for the first time. Mm-hmm. She doesn't believe in that and she monitors aggressively. I've got 2 other kids. The one is 7, the other one is 5. They've been on tablets and the internet probably from age 2 or so. Mm-hmm. My brother's firstborn son was on a tablet maybe from age 1, etc. My mom for a long time was like, my brother's son, he's so brilliant. He just switches on the tablet and then he swipes and he clicks and And I said to her, look, be very careful because just because a child can use a technology you don't understand doesn't automatically mean they're smart. Yeah. Number 2, you need to concern yourself with if this child is potentially addicted to this thing, they don't now play outside, engage with other kids, become antisocial. The balancing of giving kids access to tools, the internet, cell phones, tablets, laptops, making sure that they still have some type of a life. And then the dangers of keeping children from some of these tools, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have anything to potentially share, especially with maybe parents of really young kids and parents maybe of teenagers to be like, no, they're not allowed cell phones because they look at rubbish. And it's like, but my homework, you can go to a library. Right. Or you can... How do we balance those concerns on both sides of the equation?
It's a tricky one, especially when kids are involved. Personally, I have 2 kids. Yeah. I didn't give my son a phone until he was 13, a cell phone. But he had a he had a laptop, he had a computer. It's different from having a cell phone. My daughter, he only had a cell phone recently. She's 12. She only had it because I was traveling and I needed the communication to stay.
Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten it.
No, otherwise she wouldn't have gotten. Even now that she has it, there's so much restriction on how much she use it. But nonetheless, she has a laptop. I just felt like a phone is different. Like they get so personal with it, and it is more addictive than sitting on a laptop. However, I think that kids should not be exposed too early, especially to social media. Because the tendency with social media, with kids, young minds that are still developing, they develop this whole thing of starting to compare themselves with whatever is happening out there. It's not healthy for children.
And validation, seeking external validation.
It's terrible. So for me, any parent, if you could keep their kids from the phone as long as possible, I will encourage that. It's healthier in that way. But nonetheless, expose them, for example, help them use Google to do their homework. That's different from being addicted to WhatsApp or Instagram or any of the social media platforms, right? But helping them to indulge in things that are more knowledgeable, like how to use Google and research for information. I heard another parent explain that, these platform, I think it's called Quora. It's like a social media, but it's more of where people ask questions and they respond.
Oh, Quora, yes.
Yeah.
Quora.
Yes.
Quora,
So he said he signed up his kids on that platform. They're not on any social media, but they are on that platform, answering questions, asking questions, and other people are answering. It is much more better to develop their critical thinking that way and help them learn using the internet than throwing them on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I think that is what I would say to that. The longer you keep your kids from cell phones, early on, I see kids with 7 years, kids with cell phones, and no, I couldn't do that to my own.
Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe Mark Zuckerberg, I'll add. But I know Bill Gates, definitely. And a couple of other tech billionaires also kept their children away from cell phones and the internet. And in the documentary, The Social Dilemma, which people can check on Netflix or I think it's on YouTube, those are some of the concerns that are raised in there, the dangers of social media specifically for children and what they do. So you're using a cell phone versus a laptop, which I want to counter very quickly. And I'm glad that you mentioned social media because that's the concern. And you can have social media on a laptop.
Yeah.
You can have a cell phone without social media, which then makes me wonder, this is a tool, of course, just like a computer, tablet, or rather laptop, Is the issue the internet? Is the issue certain parts of the internet? You look at a country like China, Dubai, as well in the UAE, there are certain websites you cannot access because they've decided this is not what's best for the fabric of the country. Should we not be giving kids these tools? This is me countering now. Yeah. Give you the tool, the phone that you're saying is problematic, from as early as possible. So for the one parent, remove internet and only load educational apps or whatever the case may be. Yeah. For the next parent, it's like, use this tool, but maybe there's somewhere where they can go, where they can curate. These are the only websites you can go to. Quora.com, maybe Wikipedia, maybe some educational websites, and which then covers your fears, but still gives kids access to the tool from an early age to start learning.
Yeah, I think that is still an option that can also work. But my thinking, in my case, why I gave them computers and not cell phones, it's more of, and I remember telling my son, this is not a gaming tool, this is a work tool. It's sort of prepare him what a computer is, maybe how to interact with a bigger machine rather than a tiny cell phone. So my thinking was more on training them for the future. I don't think work much. Yes, a lot of people work with their cell phones, but when it really comes into the world of work, it's laptops and computers that we use, right? Yeah. And I did not want him being in a world where he faces and sees the computer for the first time and goes like, oh, wow, that type of a thing. Yeah, so that was my thinking around that. But what you're saying is true. There can be a lot of restrictions on the cell phone as well, for parental control, of course, because whatever I'm trying to protect them from with the cell phone, they can still access it with a laptop, by the way. Sure. Yeah, so for me, it's just that with a laptop, with a cell phone, this is what happened. They disappear into the toilet. With a cell phone, you can't carry a laptop to the toilet. Sure. under the pillows when they're sleeping, under the blankets. They can take their cell phones under the blanket. You don't even know that this kid is sleeping with it, but you can't carry the laptop on the bed. So for me, that was my reasoning around that. It's something that is not so easy for you to hide and do funny things without me seeing. I would always know your laptop was here. If you're going, I know it's here. You don't take it outside to go and do funny things with friends, but you can pick up your cell phone and go do funny things with your friends. So that was my thinking around that. Not giving them cell phone early on, but give them laptops early on.
I'm sure there's applications, and maybe when people watch this, they'll drop them in the comments. Applications that allow us to mirror or access our children's phones.
Yes.
As a way of tracking. Look, the idea is not to track your child the whole day.
Yeah.
But just to ensure that maybe their search histories and those things are checked.
Absolutely.
For parents that have given their kids access.
There's one I did on my daughter's phone, which she was so mad at me. So that any game she's trying to download from the Play Store, it gives a notification to my email. I have to approve it.
First.
She hated it. She's like, Mommy, what's the point?
There's an episode on Black Mirror. I forgot what it's called. Black Mirror is the series on Netflix.
Right.
One of my favorites, which speaks about the dangers of technology. And in one of the episodes, a mother inserts a chip inside their child, I think when they're very young or after they've just been born. And the idea is for safety, to track GPS where your child is at any time. But it also gives the mother access to the child's eyes. I think it's a girl.
Oh, wow.
So as she gets older, the mom, I don't think ever told the child about the chip. But the mom sees the girl kissing for the first time, having sex. And this girl eventually finds out. And it becomes a huge issue. But it is important to monitor our kids in various ways. Two problems, just to close off this topic. Two problems is two parents, and the second one is friends.
Right.
So many of us growing up, there'd be TV shows we couldn't watch. One of them being Izo. Growing up, and a lot of kids, or maybe telenovelas. So kids would find ways to go visit their friends during that time to go watch these things. I don't have a cell phone. My friend Matthew at school's got an extra phone because they've got a lot of phones at home. And he's like, bro, I'll bring your phone in the morning so you can chat. You're thinking your child doesn't have access to porn and social media. It's like, no, I've seen your son's social media. He doesn't. He only has a laptop. You're like, that's weird because this is his profile. You're like, how? And it's because friends at school have given him a phone or access to their phones to do all the things you're trying to counter. This includes things like porn. You'll say, I don't want my son exposed to porn, and then his friends will bring porn magazines at school. So it's tough. The second one, and Kanye West and Kim Kardashian had this dilemma where Kanye West didn't want North on TikTok, on social media. Yes. And Kim was like, this is my child as well. And we've built our whole reputation on platform and reality TV. I love my child just as much as you do, and I feel this is what's best for her. So just your opinions again to close off. Two parents with differing opinions, specifically in this example, myself and the mother of my kids, because I'd prefer for my kids to have phones and internet and then train them to be responsible. Right. The mom says no. And then the other one is managing friends, cousins, neighbors. Your son is always next door. Why do you always know homework? There's no homework. He's there on TikTok swiping his life away. Right. What are your thoughts around those two?
Oh my God. When it comes to co-parenting and having different views, it's tough, man. It's difficult. But at the end of the day, you're not doing it for yourself. It's about what is good for the child, what will benefit the child, So again, my opinion around it is that the child should be kept away from the cell phone for as long as possible. But in case the father had a different views, I will probably back down. But that's me, let him have whatever he wants to do with his kid.
That's interesting. When the kids are with him,
it doesn't matter.
He'll parent what he deems is best.
Yes.
Is this because you trust him or just for the sake of peace?
No, it's not necessarily for the sake of peace. I think my thinking around that is because it's good to allow someone, in case it's wrong, in case I think it is wrong, right? How else will he know it's wrong unless I allow him to do this and then find out by itself? For example, this was the case with my son anyway. His father was not involved, but I kept telling him his cell phone, if he takes to school, he's going to lose it. He didn't listen to me. So I'm like, okay, it's fine. And he took it to school
and he lost
it. So when he came home crying, I knew he was going to lose the phone, but there was no other way he could learn that lesson than actually doing it.
Yeah.
So assuming, I'm not saying perhaps he will be wrong in that, assuming that his approach is wrong, the best way for him to find out is for me to let him do it. Yeah, so I cannot just stick on my way, and I could also be wrong. So there's that potential. Yeah. So I allow him do it. By the way, he's also the parent. So I'm not the only one who is looking out for the child. Yeah. Understanding that I trust him, that he has the, what's it called? He has the good intentions for the child. Yeah. You let him, because I think that it takes two people to make a child, right? So decisions
we
are
hope.
not. Yeah, decisions are not
with
made
artificial
by one.
Intelligence. We don't know.
Decisions are not made by one parent. So on the side of security, when it comes to protecting kids online, I watched something really scary yesterday, where this guy who is an ethical hacker is talking about sites that are meant for teenage boys or girls to, like, chat rooms, but these sites have old men sometimes in their 30s, in their 40s, chatting to these young kids, and that's how they end up in situations where they should not have ended up. And so, I mean, literally, this guy is talking about security is an illusion, and when you hear it from an ethical hacker, it becomes even very scary as a parent. Like, oh my God, what are my kids exposed to online? You could think that this site is very safe, but you don't know the people at the back end. Sure. Are these really teenagers that your kids are talking to? Sure. It could be anybody. And this it may not only happen on teens chat rooms. It can happen on Instagram. It can happen on TikTok, where they end up talking with people that are way older than them. But these people put a profile looking like they are a school kid. They can even come and lie and say, I'm in so-and-so school. You know, you are in so-and-so school. And before you know it, they get sucked into things that they should not be part of. So, yeah, as much as parents are giving phones to their kids or these gadgets, there should really be supervision and constant checking of what is it that the kids are up to. Because the kids may think they know, but the world is dangerous. It's a dark place, especially the internet. So, yeah.
With AI, it gets scarier because an old pedophile somewhere can create a profile where they even make video footage using the technology available to look like a child.
Right.
I'm an old... dirty, disgusting man, and I've created a profile with a young, innocent girl to lure some boy in because I want to do whatever I want to do to him. It's a reminder for some of us who are a bit old school to be like, as much as possible, try and instill the right values in your child. The right values in your child, whether it is from church, whether it is culturally, whether it's just at home, whether it's just honest conversations about the world out there. That can keep your child from so many things, where other kids are saying, come look at this magazine, come touch, like, no, thanks. And when you ask your child, have you never, you're like, oh, all the kids at school, why didn't you? You're like, because I know smoking is wrong.
Right.
Because my lungs are going to burn and I'm going to get cancer. Because you taught me that.
Right.
You taught me that I can try and be cool and chat to girls and try and meet up with them in the streets, but that could be an old person and they'll steal me and you'll never see me again and I'll be a sex worker somewhere. Right. So because of that, Mom, I listen to you. And that's why whenever these things come up, I think about them because you've instilled the right values. Right. So it's just a reminder for that.
Absolutely.
You have an opportunity to speak to all the leaders of schooling / education on the African continent. We speak about robotics and computing or programming, Right. Coding is what I wanted to say. Coding. Privileged schools. We've got a continent where kids are still studying under trees. We've got a continent where some of the schools don't even have basic science laboratories with tubes, where kids don't have calculators. What advice would you give people that are in leadership, whether it's the Department of Education in South Africa or other ministries, just from this is the revolution we're going into. We've got AI, we've got machine learning, we've got all these things. And because we feel like schooling is becoming obsolete and is not linked to the real world, these are some of the things that you guys, as a matter of interest, need to start looking into.
The curriculum needs to change.
A complete overhaul.
Completely turned upside down, shifted, shaken over. It needs to change. It needs to change. I would say artificial intelligence should be the new mathematics. That is how serious this thing should be. It should be compulsory. It is not an option. You take it or don't take it. It should be the new mathematics.
Everyone is going to take AI as a subject.
Yes, take it as a subject.
Just like maths.
Just like maths. Because it is by exposing children to these things that they will be able to come up with innovative solutions that the continent needs. But if we shield them away from it, how are we going to solve the problems?
Yeah.
The people who are coming up with solutions for the continent now are people who are experimenting with AI. And kids have brilliant minds. Like the children are ready for this revolution, especially when we're talking about this whole cell phone, them swiping. I mean, these are kids born literally on the internet.
Yeah.
So they are ready for the disruption. They are ready for the technological revolution. But the school system is not ready. So much so that there is such a wide gap. When the kid is at home, plug on the internet with their gadgets, doing whatever they're doing online, and then they go to school, no internet, no computer. They have to write on pen, looking at the board. And these are two different worlds.
Correct.
It's confusing to children. So whatever the kids are exposed to at home, I believe that they should have some level of similarities when they walk in the classroom.
Yeah.
They have innovative boardrooms.
Do I have snotties?
Yeah, I see it on camera.
What black
It's a
thing?
white thing.
Not snotties.
A slight snotty, man. It's probably a nose hair or something, but it's like high def camera.
Maybe it's a nose hair. Sorry, Nicky.
How come I can't
I
even
work.
see?
I work with slay queens.
I can't even see what they're talking about. But maybe you can see from
Thanks,
the camera,
Kumoto.
but I can't see it though. So as I was saying, the kid should be able to walk into a classroom and there should be some similarity with what the kid is exposed to at home.
Yeah.
One of the reasons children don't like going to school also, especially in this age and time, is because of the difference, the wide gap between what they're exposed to at home and what they're exposed to in school. So the school system needs a completely new curriculum. And I know that it will not be easy because there's money to be made from printing textbooks.
I want to give a shout out, man, to Talipani Banks. You spoke about him. He becomes the first LinkedIn big deal that I've had on the platform.
Yeah, he's such a close friend. So I actually met you through him. I remember,
You
yes.
did. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a while back.
Yeah.
What is machine learning for people that don't know what it is? And maybe we should have done this at the beginning. What is artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence, in the basic definition of it, is computer systems that mimic human behavior. They do things that historically were being done by humans, like reasoning, like making decisions. Those are...
So there's human intelligence. Artificial intelligence is artificial human intelligence.
Sort of, we can put it that way, but
Sorry,
in a software.
My apologies. I'm feeling a bit hot. I don't know if it's just me.
Maybe it's just you.
Please, my apologies, sis. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Please continue. Artificial human intelligence is what it is. Okay.
Yes, I guess we could call it artificial human intelligence because at the end of the day, it is humans that build these systems, right? So artificial intelligence is that system that, a computer system that mimics human behavior. The basic example we can look at is, of course, ChatGPT. Once again, it sounds like human. It sounds like you're talking to an actual human being. It behaves like human, which is completely very different from the previous technologies, right? Because when you look at AI systems, they have the capacity to actually behave out of code, which is where the existential threat to humanity comes from. Previous technologies, they can only operate within the code that they were built to operate in.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence doesn't work like that. This whole technology can do something that surprises the people that built it, which is where people are really worried.
Yeah.
Like, what if this thing gets out of hand and start killing us, like movies have portrayed?
It's gonna ask rational questions about.
Yes.
Nicky asked me to go and fetch her daughter from school, but why?
Exactly.
She's being lazy. I'm not gonna fetch that girl. She must get stronger. So
because it behaves outside of the original code, that's where the real concern comes in. So the earlier it is regulated, the better for humanity.
It's like regulating human intelligence.
Yes.
Because once human beings also go beyond certain laws,
right,
also it becomes a bit dangerous.
Right.
What is machine learning? Sorry, Sizwe, thank you for the aircon.
It is an aspect of artificial intelligence, of course, but it's more about using data to understand systems around you. It's still part of AI, but the section
Okay.
of AI, but more in the technical aspects of it, where now there's a lot of data having to be used to either to train the systems itself or to understand whatever needs to be understood using large amount of data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that coding is important? At some point, I did computer science in high school and university. Then we got to a point with some of these platforms, technologies, Python, not sure about Java in them, where some of the stuff you don't have to code, you just drag and drop.
Right.
And coding almost now becomes like learning hardcore maths, whereas the next child is just using a calculator.
Right.
Do you think coding is important for kids? I mean, you're speaking AI, and you're saying AI should be maths. Should coding also be part of that, where kids actually understand?
It's tricky because the world has evolved so fast. 5 years ago or 3 years ago, yes, every child should learn coding. But now we are also in an era of no code, where you and I, without ever learning any line of code, can go and do the whole drag and drop and build an artificial intelligence model when we have never learned
to code.
Nothing
You
at
don't
all.
even have to drag and drop. You can speak to...
Absolutely. You literally command it, voice command,
and it creates
whatever model you want. So it becomes tricky, like, is coding necessary? Is coding not necessary? But this is my personal opinion around it. It is still necessary for you to learn how to code, because when you learn how to code, it gives you an advantage in understanding how to prompt the systems better than someone who did not really learn coding at all. So it is not really entirely pointless to learn coding. It just gives you an edge over someone who is dragging and dropping. You know better. You understand the language better. It is like, for example, there are new AI systems that are coming up, right, where, for example, if I went to Thailand and someone is speaking Thai, which is one of the places I struggle with language as well, if I had like a particular glasses on, it translates what the person is saying in their language, and it translates it to English for me, right? So that's me being able to understand what they are saying. So in that case, the question then becomes, should we still strive to learn foreign languages? Yes. But in my opinion, yes. It is better for me to speak Thai than to be translated using glasses, because there's a different connection when you and I sit like this and we're having the conversation in Zulu, which I should have learned being in South Africa, by the way, which I haven't. So there's a different connection. Learning your language connects us rather than being translated using artificial intelligence on eyeglasses.
The work being done by Google is scary, man. So people that have never tried it, if you're listening for the first time, go to your phone, look up Google Translate. So the Google Translate and the Google Lens can take something written somewhere and translate it as if it was written in that font. It is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I also wanted to give movie references because I mentioned The Matrix, I mentioned Ex Machina. I want to mention Her with Joaquin Phoenix. I want to mention Mother as well, which is another important movie, because we're trying to learn these things. I also want people to know, man, because I did coding, there's this thing of, oh, my son does maths. My child is doing coding and robotics. These are tools.
Yeah.
If your child, no, let me not speak about children. If you have learned coding, but you have no imagination and you don't know how to create,
right.
And worse, for a lot of the coders that get paid a lot, because at some point coding paid a lot, it was the ones that had coding plus advanced or financial maths. Mm-hmm. It is just a tool, because coding, for people that don't know, is the language a computer understands.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's like, do you know I can speak Mandarin?
Right.
But you speaking Mandarin doesn't mean you can speak to the president of China and affect the laws.
Right.
It means you can speak to a hawker on the street and just get a discount on a t-shirt,
right.
So people need to understand that coding is just the language that a computer understands to behave or do whatever you want it to do, to command it. Coding requires, so this is where my son does coding and makes 10 million a year. My son does coding and is struggling to get a job. This is where I'll say, your son must go watch movies. Your son must go and make friends. Your son must go play sports. Your son must travel. Your son must go date and have their heart broken, because the reason Apple and iPhones and Steve Jobs is such an amazing story is not because he was just a tech guy, of which he wasn't. I think that was Steve Wozniak. It was because he was adopted. Right. It was because he was squatting and he dropped out of school. It was because he traveled to, I think it was India. It was because he took up calligraphy and philosophy. All these things now inform this thing that he has. And it's not just your son, the mathematician that only does maths, is going to work in some dark little corner and never become anything.
And I double on that.
Go on.
You know, speaking of that, the era of one skill, where you could only have one skill and you could function in society, it's also over. That era is over. You need multiple skill sets to be able to function in this age and time. So just being good at mathematics is not good enough. Just being good in marketing is not good enough. Just being good in finance is not good enough. And that's one of the things I was sharing with the team this morning for the event I had. You need to, even if you're working in marketing, you need to understand what is happening in finance. So that when you're drawing up your budgeting or whatever, you are at a better position understanding finance to come up with a marketing budget, right? So, and one of the things that digital transformation is doing is breaking down these walls, you know, that are like, okay, this is on the finance, this is on the product development, this is... There has to be an overall knowledge. It doesn't mean that you now have to go get a degree in marketing or no. You just have to be so knowledgeable. You know, have you ever had a conversation with someone so knowledgeable that you can strike on a topic and they just go? You strike on a topic and they just go. Rather than someone, they can only speak finance.
Oh. Why would you want to work with that person?
Exactly. So it gives you an advantage, especially in the age of AI. For those who are worried about losing their jobs, right? One of the ways to stay relevant is for you to be multi-skilled. Be so fluent in different things that if one thing doesn't work out, you try something else. If one thing doesn't work out, you try something else, so that you are not having this narrow mindset of even when it comes to different industries, learn things that are happening outside of different industries. Because this morning, one of the things I was sharing even with the team was that it was an insurance company. So I was giving an example. Even within the insurance industry, you need to find out what is happening within other industry, because we are living in an age where any industry can eat anyone's lunch. You know, you hear of Apple Pay. Are there banks? Why should Apple be even doing anything with money? Right? So if you are not paying attention, if you're paying attention only to your direct competitor, which is another insurance company, you will miss out that the person who is going to disrupt your business is somewhere in agriculture. So pay attention to the whole digital ecosystem, because what is going to provoke innovation that will happen within your industry may come entirely from somewhere else. And that is one of the things that being multi-skilled is important.
To close off on AI, I forgot to give a shout out to Jarvis, the technology in Iron Man. For people that maybe want to see what AI is, it's Tony Stark speaking to his computer and it helps him create stuff. I'd like to hear your thoughts. You speak about emerging technologies. I'm not sure if there are any others you want to raise, but I want to ask about your opinions on blockchain and cryptos, specifically as solutions for the unbanked, for Africa, for India, for Brazil, etc.
These are all great technologies, not technologies that I'm specifically very versed with, but they are nonetheless technologies that are important for this age and time we are living in. Before I even go into that, I experimented with an AI tool yesterday and it blew my mind. It is a tool where you can upload a photo. You pick it could be a photo or anybody's photo that was taken in a random place. You upload it on this site. It will give you the exact location where the photo was taken. So I took some of random photos that are taken in Dubai, that are taken in Singapore, and I uploaded them on the site. It gave me exactly the location.
The exact location.
Where the photo was taken. I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. So these are tools that are coming into the market that you look at it and you're like,
that's dangerous though, right?
It is, because it's like invasion of privacy. You pick anybody's photo online and you're curious to where was this person? They will tell you where they were.
Is this open to the public?
It is.
Okay, before they shut it down, what's the name of the technology?
Called GeoSpy, I think.
GeoSpy?
Almost like geographical spy, but it's only GEO, then spy.
Yeah, it's like GeoPay, I think, with F&B.
Yeah, but this one is GeoSpy.
GeoSpy. I know there's a guy on TikTok, you give him a picture with someone, he's got an ability to figure out where they are based on the picture. And I'm guessing now they've figured out the technology.
It's similar.
The first time I was introduced was by my brother. I don't know how many years ago it was, to Google Earth. And then Google Earth was bad. So my brother shows me, this is our neighborhood, this is what. I was like, this is insane at the time.
Yeah.
Then he was like, it gets worse. I'm like, what do you mean? And he showed me Street View,
Exactly.
where it shows you the house. I was like, no, Chief, no. I actually, on Google Translate, I wanted to say I was in China last year in a city called Ningbo. I got to a hotel and the receptionist couldn't speak English for colonized Africans that think English and French are the only important languages.
Right.
In that whole city, there's no English signs. There's no. My mom asked, where are the English signs? To what you were saying about, I'm like, they don't need it here. But I get to the receptionist, he can't speak English at all. I've booked and everything. He whips out this gadget. It wasn't a phone, but I'm sure you can get on a phone, where he just gave me this thing to speak English and then he'd listen.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, okay. And he sorted me out. But Google Street View made me very scared. And just last week, I was rewatching Denzel Washington and Paula Patton, Tony Scott movie, Deja Vu, where they've got a technology called Snow White. It's an imaginary technology in the movie, but it's the idea that if Google Street View can see our homes and satellites can get that detailed, I can't but imagine that some of the advanced intelligence agencies have access to our audio.
Right.
It could be through a phone or whatever the case may be, because if a normal human being can use geospy.
That's why when I'm telling you, I was listening to this ethical hacker yesterday. He literally said, security is an illusion. If anybody wants to get you, they will get you. It is that easy.
I met a fascinating couple in Dubai last year. I forgot where they were from. I don't want to guess. I know the lady Hannah's from Ethiopia. Her husband, I'm going to lie and I apologize to him. He may have been from Senegal. But they are based in Dubai and he does cybersecurity. And he says currently, for people that don't know, it's a very big opportunity for them. Geospy.ai.
Oh, you're checking it out.
Sorry, your thoughts on blockchain and crypto?
Yes,
even
like
if
I
it's
was
just
saying,
generic.
yes, these are important technologies that will solve a lot of the problems on the continent, especially when it comes to the unbanked, right? So if there are any innovative young people out there that can experiment with these technologies and come up with solutions, yes. And technology, for example, like blockchain, it will remove a lot of the third parties that you have to always go through this one, go through this one, go through that one, go through that one before you get to the real deal. It removes all of that and it brings person A, person B close together. All the middle people are removed. So that's one of the beauty of blockchain. Why not? Why not incorporate it into systems?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's important.
Any other technologies that you're aware of that you like, that you want to speak about? Outside of that, I dubbed Princess Mtombeni my Minister of Nuclear. Would you consider the idea of being Africa's Minister of AI as an honorary title, but as something that maybe even as you travel through the world, you're like, now I've been called the Minister or the President of Artificial Intelligence on the African continent because it doesn't exist and I'm appointing myself. So any African government that needs the information,
oh my God,
please hit me up and I'm here to school you and connect you. Kind of situation. I think that's dope.
This is really interesting. I've never thought about it like that, but those are big shoes to fill. Yes, I am self-appointed AI researcher. I love it. I love the topic. I love to see what it can do on the continent. And yes, if there are any governments that would want to use my consulting services, of course, why not? I will speak to it. I'm more especially on the culture side, on how people should really embrace this, much more less than the technical aspects of it, the nitty-gritty of how the technology itself works. I drive the conversations. I prepare people for it, make people to be open-minded, develop the digital mindset, to embrace this thing. Understanding, again, like I mentioned earlier, the era where conversations around technology was only for IT guys, that era is over. And the beauty of it is that I've actually worked with the African Union on a program. That's why I went to Nairobi to speak about the fourth industrial revolution and how it can actually have an impact on the continent. So I've kind of done work in that regard that has to do with governments. But yes, if there's an opportunity, why not? Yes, I will gladly come on board.
Definitely want to earn commission from that.
Why not? Yes.
Any other technologies that you think are worth being aware of, should know about? I remember Code. I think it's code.org, if I'm not mistaken, a
Those
non-profit
are like,
organization,
yes.
global, trying to get kids to get into coding,
Yes,
etc.
my daughter actually has been on the platform. She has completed some courses. My kids actually went to an actual coding school. That's what I was saying. Even though
Brilliant.
there's no code applications now, when you have the basic knowledge of how it functions, you have an edge over someone who has not studied.
Sure.
So yes, platforms like No Code. There's also Khan Academy, I think.
The Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Very important. Sal Khan speaks about mastery.
Yes.
You did a TEDx talk, by the way. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Sal Khan has got an amazing TED talk on YouTube.
Yes, I listened to his talk as well.
They were funded by, I think, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, amongst others. And his whole thing was the disruption, again, of education and schooling.
Right.
And the Khan Academy offers, it's not the only one. I think there's Coursera.
Yes, there's Coursera,
and
there's
a couple of
Udemy,
others.
there's
Udemy
so
as well.
many of these. And then we're talking about, there are free ones on Google. Google has so many free courses for anyone who really wants to understand the basics of these things without having to even spend money. There are courses on prompting where you can literally learn how to interact better with these technology. You know, in the past, when you go for an interview, for example, I mean, in the world, in the economies of the past, there was a question that you had to answer to on how good you are with interpersonal relationships, right? How do you communicate well with people?
Yeah.
So I believe that as we're entering this economy that is being powered by AI, most of the questions that organizations will be asking would be, how well do you interact with AI, right? How well do you communicate with these systems?
Yeah.
Because that is a skill that people need to learn, and the technical word for it, of course, is prompting. So there are free courses out there on prompting that people can Google and learn the basics of it. I myself have done a course on prompting because it's important for you to understand the language, the way you talk to these systems, so that they give you the right answers. AI can hallucinate. For people who don't understand, they would think, hallucinating means that it can go completely off topic and give you very wrong answers that are convincingly seem like it's the truth. But some people don't have that knowledge about it, and they just go with whatever AI spits out and like, oh, this must be true. Oh, this must be true. No, not really.
People ever get a chance on Google, I'm just not sure where you go, but I was exposed by a lady I went to varsity with, that the way, I think this is prompting, if I'm not mistaken, but the way you search on Google will impact the quality of your response.
Right.
So similarly with AI, it's almost like macking or flirting with a girl. If you're like, hey, I like you, you must be my girlfriend. Antoine, how did you get this girl? Because I went to her and I told her I like you. I'm like, no, that's not how you get
No, it doesn't work like
this
that.
lady to, there's a way you're like, hi, how are you? You look very pretty.
Yeah.
So outside of that, with artificial intelligence and prompting, it's a matter of what are you trying to figure out?
Right.
And maybe this is also where the basic of coding comes in. Be specific. Don't give it too much because it's going to end up picking up too many keywords. Be specific.
Yeah.
And there's a way of saying it. And depending on how whatever code reads, it may read from left to right. So if you started off with focusing on this is where it will start searching versus starting off with this. And so, yeah, very, very important.
Absolutely.
Any closing comments from your side? I know this is a very detailed conversation, but I think we're still just doing the entry, and I appreciate that you are that you're an advocate more than a technical.
Yes.
Because the technical is where some people kind of get lost.
Yes. Speaking of the technical where people get lost, I was called in early this year to speak to the leadership at Momentum. I did a conference with the leaders about thriving in the age of artificial intelligence. When I'd finished my talk, the CEO came up to me and said, Nicky, thank you for speaking English. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? He said, we've brought so many technical people in at this conference, but many of the things they talk, it flies over people's head because they don't relate with the lay person, right?
Yeah.
But in my case, because and this is the thing, one of the things I thought don't qualify me to speak in this world or in this industry has become the very thing that has elevated me, because I used to think I don't have a technology background, I don't fit here.
Yeah.
But clearly, because I simplify the conversation to any lay person can understand this, it actually became the one thing that elevated me, where I could speak at a conference like that and they're like, finally we get it.
Yes.
Like
You're not
we
using
get it.
complex jargon.
No.
And abbreviations and acronyms.
Exactly. And then for a highly technical person, they don't know how to break it down. I mean, it's a great skill. I wish I had both, But the highly technical people don't know how to break it down for the layman to understand. So I tell people I am the bridge between the tech guys up there and the lay people. So the tech guys are there, the lay people are here. Nicky is somewhere here in the middle. I'm calling you guys like, hey, come up. If you look at my LinkedIn, what I actually put on it is this: bridging the gap between people and technology.
Beautiful.
Because tech is on one hand, people are on the other hand like, no, this is not for us. I'm like, hey, come on, it's for you. So I'm trying to bridge that gap.
Your wishes for your kids, are they linked to the work you do now, or is it somewhere completely different?
Oh my God, my son I have tried for my child to have an interest in artificial intelligence. This child has an interest in music. But anyway, he could see use some sort of AI in his music thing. That is where his mind is like right now. So whatever I talk about AI, he just looks at me like.
Please put him on, I think it's called Origins.
So
YouTube.
he just loves to do his thing with music, play around with music.
It's presented by Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark. I just want to get the original.
Interesting.
So, will.i.am is one of the people that use AI because it's about AI. I think it's AI Origins or something on YouTube.
I have a video on my YouTube channel with where will.i.am is talking about artificial intelligence. I sort of did a reaction to that because some people were responding and said, what has a musician got to do with AI? Like, this guy should stay in the music industry and stay out of AI. I was like, okay, this is where people get it wrong.
Sure.
Everyone should be talking about artificial intelligence. It is disrupting the music industry. It is disrupting entertainment. It is disrupting agriculture. It is disrupting education. So there is no industry that is untouched by artificial intelligence. And so if you hear a musician talking about artificial intelligence, in fact, kudos to that musician. I was listening to Trevor Noah the other day. He is talking about AI and entertainment. I was like, yes, Trevor, go. This is how it should work. But there are people that essentially removing themselves from this revolution by standing on the sidelines, by saying, no, this is not our thing, this is not for us. And then when they see someone like Trevor talking about artificial intelligence, like, what has comedy got to do with artificial intelligence? That's a horrible way of thinking. And that is why many people will be left behind, not necessarily because AI is stealing jobs, but because their thinking, their minds are just not thinking in the right way. One of the things I said in my book is that so many people are left behind or struggling, not necessarily because the economy is difficult, but because their minds are not thinking right. Their minds are not in that place where it can grab opportunities.
It's a YouTube original series. It's called The Age of AI on YouTube. It's 9 episodes, originally presented by Robert Downey Jr. And one of the episodes is will.i.am. And as you're speaking about music, there's been current beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake overseas. And number one, there have been people that have been using AI to take music lyrics and get them to be sung or rapped by a certain artist. I stand to be corrected. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but I think Drake uses Tupac's voice or something along those lines in one of the songs. And it's like, did Tupac really say? It's like, no, it's AI type of situation. So that could be maybe the gateway drug for your son to be like, this is what will.i.am is doing. And I'm imagining even with the Trevor Noah, with the amount of data that's available online, someone like Trevor Noah, Kevin Hart, Trevor Noah, some of our comedians, they normally have these writing groups, especially for a roast. Yeah. They bring the best comedians, they sit, they write jokes. You can imagine with ChatGPT, AI, Trevor Noah, Kevin Hart, go onto a platform and ask AI to bring out the funniest jokes ever in stand-up. And then to add maybe a South African flavor or an African-American flavor, something that's trending locally. And then I want it told in a Dave Chappelle type style. And literally it will probably feed back the best jokes based on reactions. And then you can even be like, I want the audio of how Dave Chappelle would say it. And then you rehearse that and you've literally got a show. And you can choose to either go and do the show physically present, or you can be like, this is going to be the first virtual AI show. And in the show, I'm going to be Trevor Noah. I'm going to be Kevin Hart. I'm going to be Dave Chappelle. If at some point in the show, you guys scream for someone else to tell the joke, I will be whoever that person is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's gonna be hectic.
The future is exciting and scary at the same time. So we have to be ready.
Nicky Verd,
Yes.
I'm so honored to have sat with you. Again, I apologize for taking so long.
That's okay.
I hope you're not an AI machine yourself, starting to have a few
I could
doubts,
be.
Nana.
I could be, which is one of the reasons that I tell people be very skeptical. In fact, for those who take things at face value, you need to develop the skill of skepticism. This could literally be an AI speaking to you. I'm kidding. But nonetheless, the world has come to that point where it is difficult to tell fake from real.
Yeah.
Fake and real are so convincing, both of them, because of artificial intelligence, that you and I need to develop a skill of skepticism. You know, in the past, when you saw someone who is a little bit of a skeptic, you look at them like, oh, come on, like, I have to work that hard to convince you. In this age and time, you have to learn that skill.
Yeah.
Don't take anything at face value. If I called you, double check, like, was that really Nicky calling? Was that phone call really from Nicky? You know, find ways to double check. If someone sends you a text message, do not react immediately and send that money. The text message may not have come from them.
Ask a question.
Yes, ask
personal.
questions, call and follow up and find, is this really true? Are you really in hospital? I heard you were in an accident. Because all sort of things are happening now where a friend can call you, or even your mom can call you and be like, I just got into an accident, I'm in hospital. Can you quickly send this amount of money? And because you heard your mom's voice, you assume that was your mom.
Yeah.
It could be an AI voice, playing around
Voice
with
notes
you.
also want to be dangerous.
Yes. So when something comes through to you where it requires your personal information, things that require things like money, do not react immediately. Verify before you proceed. That is how, that's the world in which we're living today. Because here's the thing. Many people who are sitting on the sidelines and complaining about AI taking their jobs, criminals are not sitting on the sidelines. Criminals are part of this revolution.
That is true. You spoke about ethical hackers.
Yes.
You had to add the ethical.
I had to add that. Because criminals are going digital. What more of you and I? So criminals are not sitting on the sidelines and say, people are no longer carrying cash around. How do I pickpocket anymore? You know, they're not crying. They're not going home and telling their friend, you know what? I picked 5 wallets today. There was no 10 rand inside. They're finding ways in which they can pick 100 rand online.
True.
So if criminals are able to adapt to the digital world, what more of you and I? Don't sit and cry, because criminals are not sitting and crying. They've learned the tools. They're using AI to carry out their criminality online.
China has advanced quite a lot, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on full-on surveillance. So we spoke about the African continent and documentation, and the idea of saying one of the things that will maybe allow us to advance is to get everyone a digital ID, passport, make sure that everyone's fingerprints are available online. I know in India, for example, grant recipients have to use biometric systems. For people that don't know biometric, it's going to Capitec and your face and your fingers, even if you don't have your bank card. But having a full-on surveillance Africa, so that it becomes easier to plug and play where people are, what they're doing, and then to also measure their proficiency in some of these skills. Would you support something like that, or do you still believe in privacy and being off-grid, etc.?
Oh my God, it is a double-edged sword, that one. I haven't personally been to China. I was supposed to be, but it didn't work out. But I have followed some of the advanced technology when it comes to surveillance happening in China. Even in the UAE, Dubai has one of those high-level surveillance. Like, for example, if you cross the road in Dubai when it was not your time to cross, like robots, right? We call them here robots, traffic lights. And you cross when the lights were red. You were not supposed to cross at that time. There is a fine for it. Right. And especially when you cross with your ID or your phone in you, they pick you up immediately. Like, the fine comes straight to you. They don't even, no police comes to you to arrest you or to have any conversation with you. Why did you cross the road? The system is built so much that you are consistently under surveillance. They're looking at, they see everything you do, maybe except in the toilet. Hopefully.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
So there are countries that have that level of advanced surveillance system, and there are fines that really heavy fines that come with just crossing the road when it was not yet your turn to cross the road. And even for tourists, certain times you get stuck when you are leaving at the airport because you have been picked in certain camera situations where you shouldn't have done that, right? So there is, I think, in a good way, it makes people behave in a good way. There's a certain behavior when you know you're being watched, you don't go out of character.
Yeah.
So I think that's the advantage to it, because if you pickpocket in countries like that, they know you
immediately.
Immediately, like they will come to your house and like, hey, we saw what you did.
Sure.
So in a way, that could be used to fight crime. But now when you look at the other side of the coin, who wants to be consistently watched? Who wants to be consistently having cameras, staring at them?
And if you've got a corrupt government, they can use it for nefarious reasons and accuse you of things.
Yeah, exactly. So
imagine in the age of AI where I put on a mask with your face and I commit a crime and it picks up facial recognition.
Right, it does. Things like that do happen. But I don't know, when it comes to facial recognition, I think that with the digital passports that are coming now, it might not always work. I don't know, maybe criminals will become also better with that. Facial recognition, because they will have to compare you with your ID. Is this really the person? So if the whole thing was fake, I think AI can also pick that, no, this was not the right person, right? Again, I give back an example with Singapore. When you get to Singapore, there is no immigration that checks you in or checks you out. Like the whole system is so advanced that you place your passport on a whatever
scanner.
It scans you, you're out. When you're going back, you put it back, it scans you, you're in. And so if you are overstayed, it picks it right up in the system. You barely have any conversation with any immigration unless you have some problems. That's when you start having those type of issues. So I think with digital passports, because your fingerprints are there, your actual face ID is there, it's easy to distinguish when someone is trying to frame you for something. That's what I think.
So what these countries are doing, and you know what's fascinating about South Africa again is...
But I saw it in Rwanda, this type of technology. We're not that advanced where you scan your own passport, but when you get into the airport, the surveillance system picks your face, and it takes these photos of you. You see all the cameras and you can see your face is taking it. By the time you get to the immigration, they know exactly who is coming and who you are.
The way some of these systems have become so advanced, what I appreciate about South Africa is it may not be countrywide, but there are certain estates, companies, etc., that are integrating them. In China, WeChat is huge. It's used for everything, for travel, for paying.
Yeah.
But they also, even with WeChat, are getting to a point where everywhere you go, generally, it's almost like an update. So you'll pay with WeChat, but you also put your face so that it constantly, whether you've been shaving or, you change your hairstyle, it's updating constantly. So there are certain points where you don't even need WeChat. You just need your face and it goes. I saw a clip of a white gentleman. I don't know if he's from Europe or America, visiting in China some upside down train.
Yeah.
He was speaking about that technology, and he showed that, you just take your face, you pay, and then when you come back, it just makes sure that it's still your face because it's already captured it.
Right.
And a week thereafter, I went to visit a company called Prime Media in Sandton. And I was sitting, one of the technicians was actually there updating the system. When you get to Prime Media, what we normally do is, there's this book, Trevor Noah talks about it, it's one of his jokes. You fill in the book, PVT, etc.
Yes.
So they've gone beyond that at Prime Media. And what you do is you sign in, but there's security, but they just guide you. You go to a screen, it takes a photo of you, you put your email address, you put your name, your surname, your phone number, and then it gives you a card with your face on it. And then when you come out, now they've gotten your ID, they've gotten your face, they've got your name.
Absolutely.
Whether it's fake, whatever the case is, they've got something, because you also need to verify with your email that you received whatever. When you come out, it just needs you to show your face again. And it sends you an email, we've seen you leave. And you can imagine Prime Media does that. So the banks start doing that. After a while, you've got all of these systems have your face somewhere. So you'll be like, I don't have documentation. It's like, it's fine, but your face has been seen at these companies. This is your email address. So we can start tracking you now.
That's data.
Somewhere.
That's data.
Damn. Nicky Vert, thank you so much for joining us on the Penuel Show. And I look forward to us having more and more of these engagements because, this is going to be the future of not just the continent, but the world at large. And if some of us can be at the forefront and not be left behind and constantly wait for Americans and Europeans and Asians to assist us, I think the continent is in a much better space. Our Minister of African our African Minister of Artificial Intelligence, Nicky Vert, thank you.
Oh my God, that's such a huge title. Thank you. Thank you, Penuel, for having me. I really appreciate the conversation. Oh my God, we could talk forever.
Forever. Cheers.
That's it. Yeah, are we cutting?
Yeah.
That was a weird.
If you don't cut, he's going to ask me another question.
All right, let's cut.